Welcome to the Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group November 2025 meeting. We're glad you could join us, and we welcome those who are watching live with us and also those who will be watching this in the coming days. First of all, let's start with an opening prayer, and Jerry Castillo is going to say that for us.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity to share with everyone new information and new techniques and new ways to help us all in our search for family, whether it be history or memories or other information about our families. We're grateful for all the tools that are being made available to us. We pray a blessing upon our presenter that he may give his thoughts concisely and well phrased so that all can understand these new things. We pray, Father, for thy blessing to be with us this day. In the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. We will just like to remind you, this is our November meeting. We do not have a December meeting. So after this, we'll see you again on the second Saturday in January. Let's see. Our presenter today is James Tanner, and his presentation title is AI Basics, Full Text Search, Chatbots, and Ethics. And it sounds like some interesting topics there. So the description of this presentation is, this presentation provides an essential introduction to the role of artificial intelligence, or AI, in genealogy, focusing on full text search and AI chatbots. Learn how AI-powered handwriting recognition is revolutionizing family history research by making millions of handwritten records searchable, including those on FamilySearch.org and the 1950 U.S. federal census. Discover advanced search tips to maximize your results and find previously undiscovered documents about your ancestors. The guide also defines AI chatbots and lists popular examples. Finally, it highlights the guiding principles for responsible AI in genealogy, covering key ethical areas like accuracy, disclosure, and privacy. And I don't know if all of you have been following. James has a couple of blogs, and well, more than that actually, but a couple of genealogy blogs, and the articles that he puts out there on AI, I found those helpful over the course of these past 3 years, however long we've been going into AI in a big way. And so I recommend those. I recommend you check that out for updates, as things are changing so quickly, as James pointed out to me just this morning, that what we say here today, 2-3 months from now, there will be vast updates to it. So James has over 40 years of experience in genealogical research. He's an avid blogger it's the Genealogy Star blog. And he has served as a family history volunteer for over 18 years and has presented at expos and conferences around the US, Canada, and Europe. He's a member of the board of directors of the Family History Guide Association and is currently serving at the BYU Family History Library. He is an attorney, a professional photographer, has 7 children, 34 grandchildren, whoa, and 2 great-grandchildren. Cool. So the time is yours, James. Thank you very much for doing this.
Okay, what time did we quit?
About 11.
Okay, that's great. Okay, can you see my screen okay, or do I need to share again?
I can see you, but not your screen. So probably share again, I guess.
Let's see. Can you see that okay now?
Yeah. Oh, yep.
Okay,
there we go.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you. We're going to talk, as Lori said, we're going to talk about AI basics and a few and things we'll highlight are family searches, full text search, kind of an introduction to chatbots, and also highlight some ethics. And actually, we're going to do them in the reverse order of that. And so we're going to start out with some considerations, some ethical considerations. A little over 2 years ago, a group of people were formed, primarily at the instigation of Family Search, but it's no longer associated with Family Search. It's an independent organization, and it is now has an online website where we've added quite a bit of information recently. It's called the Coalition for Responsible AI in Genealogy. It is comprised of people from all over the United States and up into Canada. It's right now in the process of being going into formal organization as a nonprofit 501c3 corporation, and it's also beginning to have a lot of endorsements from around the genealogical community. The website itself is the URL is the address is up there on the screen up there, Craigen, CRAIGEN.org. And basically, the fundamentals here were discussed over, literally over the 2-year period, almost word for word. And the things we were most concerned about were AI can generate false, biased, or incorrect content. Now, this is something that's been a major issue with all of the AI development. And if you've watched any of the news, you've got two kind of themes that are underlying with that have been on the internet and on the news for quite a while, even before the last 2 years, clear back when they Barely Basic started a number of years ago, around 3 to 5 years ago. But the main issue here is that, in my sense, in one sense, this is old news, and but it's something that we should still be aware of. The newest versions of the program, the AI programs, which are coming out from from like ChatGPT and Google's Gemini and Microsoft Copilot, all now, and some of them, and most, not most, I can't say most, but some of the others provide all the links and all of backup information for anything that you ask and get answered. So in my kind of way of putting it, the question of the hallucinations and accuracy is kind of old news. It's no worse than it would be if you were looking at any website as to whether or not the information was trustworthy. And in fact, as a genealogist, one of the underlying issues that's always there is, was the record ever reported correctly in the first place? Spelling errors, date errors, and all sorts of things have shown up in the what we would call the primary documents. So we're not losing that. And so the second part of that was that members of the genealogical community verify the accuracy of the information with other records and acknowledge credible sources of content generated by AI. So any of the concerns that people have had about the accuracy is no longer in the forefront of the issues. It's just one of the other issues that we face as genealogists. And the benefits that we now have from using the chatbot, the AI, is very, let's say, increased. The one other big factor that we've looked at is disclosure, and we definitely require people to disclose the modifications or content modifications. Privacy is always an issue. It's not a new issue. It's an ongoing issue, and my answer to that is, if you have anything that you are really worried about being private, don't put it on the internet. And so that's the same issue that I would have had going back, 20 or 30 years. And also, we have a big push for education. And we're also very much in supporting the issues of copyright and attribution and other concerns of the genealogical community. It's kind of a summary of what we're working on. This is an ongoing project, and the one thing that we did put up, and it's just like yesterday, 2 days ago, didn't make it into my presentation, was our guideline, our statement on what we think is the important parts of maintaining integrity with images. We're having issues, of course, with people doing doing generative images and then attributing them to their great grandparents or whoever. That's we are kind of upset with that. That there's going to be a point, and there is a place and time for generated images, of which, of course, I'll be using a number here in the presentation. But when we get to genealogy, they are not sources, they are not primary sources, and they're not even, and they may be very inaccurate and misleading. So we have big on that, and I would suggest you want to go to Cragen and look around on the website and see how, particularly the items that are talking about the images, which is going to be the menu bar has changed, so there'll be a link to that. This is just a kind of introduction to the chatbot, and I know there's a lot of terms in here that are what we term jargon terms, meaning specialized words that go with a specific area, any interest. Churches have jargon. Each business has its own jargon. Everything has its jargon, and online work with PCs and Macs and all the different computers definitely have a tremendous body of jargon. So what we're going to do here is kind of go through this statement real quick here, that AI chatbot, it's first of all, understand there's nothing unique about it. The word artificial and intelligence were extremely unfortunate terms. They are not artificial and they are not intelligence. They have nothing to do with that. They are software programs that use different techniques, basically what we call large language models that they draw upon. There's been a lot of speculation out there about how they do their work. There are some theories about how, when they did all this and put it all together with the programs, of how these chatbots actually, how do they work? And there's an acknowledgement in the community and some theories that maybe are starting to now gain some traction. But mostly people have been unable to adequately describe exactly how they do it. And what they call here, and the real difference is here from what we had previously on computers, is called natural language processing. That means you can talk to it, and the chatbot, and it will, you can talk to it or type into the computer, talk to it, and get back responses that sound very similar to what you would do if you were talking to somebody else, particularly an expert. And then also they have what is called machine learning, which means that they can continue to take whatever information is input and whatever information they review and use that to answer, resolve, do whatever else they're supposed to do. The larger and larger that the basis, the models, the large language models are now into the billions and billions of items. And so with the entry, for example, of Google into this process, Google's tremendously vast number of websites that it has available, everyone kind of had to tag along to Google ultimately. Interesting story there was that Google was they said, most of the community was commenting that Google was somehow late to the table and wasn't really going to be a big player. Well, what they didn't understand was that Google was buying up most of the other companies, or buying at least partnerships, or negotiating. And so when they now have their product, it basically includes connections to ChatGPT and just about every, and a lot of other products, some of which are not the major ones. And so now, even though you missed to be able to give commands to your computer, now you can carry on a conversation and have it go back and correct its entries, and it learns from the interactions to some extent. And there's also different ways to do this. Now, um, it seems like there's kind of two reactions to this new technology, and that is, one is, I don't have anything to do with it. I don't want to do with it. I'm afraid of it. I don't care what it can do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm going to kind of give you an example here. You might look at somebody, how many people today now use smartphones? And we will have the word smart in there. And if you're using a smartphone, how many of you used any of the smartphone features, like pull up a Google map or an Apple map or PC map, some other map program, and use that for navigating around the town? Well, if you have, then you're using uh, almost in all the programs now, you're using artificial intelligence, or AI. And basically, when you go on to do a Google search, you're now, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you have any opinions about AI or whatever you do or don't like about it, you're using AI. Um, if you go on to any one of the larger websites and use it, and you get a record hint from Apple, or I mean from Family Search, or from Ancestry, MyHeritage, any of the other websites, they are all using AI. And that's, so you're, basically in the last few years, like it's become saturated. And whether and our goal, as those of us who are basically, let's say, swimming in this and swimming in the current, attempts we have is to help people to understand and appreciate the power of this, and the types of things that it really is really useful for. There are dozens. I looked it up online. I did a question just yesterday as to the number of chatbots, and they said probably in the thousands. Most of those, I would guess, the very highest percentage, 99 point something percent of those are individual chatbots that have been created for specific websites or for specific purposes. And one of the primary purposes of these chatbots that have evolved is to assist people in programming languages or programming computers. And since only a very small percentage of us actually are in the realm of programming, then all of those uses for chatbots don't apply to us. The question also that comes up is with genealogy is what percentage or what does apply to us, and that's what those of us in the Coalition for Responsible AI in Genealogy, we're interested in discussing that, and we're in the process of discussing that every week. We meet once a week, and we're talking about all of the issues that need to be clarified and taught. This is a list of I would guess, the most visible and most used. The largest and oldest of these is OpenAI's ChatGPT, which they announced an entirely let's call it an upgrade an entirely complete upgrade of their program that's going to appear in the next few days. It'll be the ChatGPT 5.1 or 5.0 or 5.1. Gemini is also, this is Google Gemini, and it is also announced, sort of in the process of announcing, a major upgrade to Gemini and to all the other underlying different programs that are underlying. You may have heard of something called Nano Banana. That's also getting an update. Copilot is Microsoft's program. Claude, Perplexity, and Meta are others that have big programs out there, all of which are being updated constantly. Question about how long ago. If you watch a video on YouTube about one of these programs, if it wasn't made in the last month or even in the last 2 weeks, it's probably well out of date. So it's just the speed of the changes is increasing. Here's the basic rule at the beginning of dealing with chatbots. The idea of a chatbot is really straightforward and simple. You just ask it a question. Um, we ask lots of questions every day. We ask questions about our conversations, what we need to order from a store, whether something is going to be helpful to us. How do we order product from Amazon, for example, or how do we there's just so many questions that we can ask, and all of those questions are generally the kinds of things that people would ask, call up and ask their children. They'd come up and ask their neighbors. Everybody has to be asking somebody to give them some information. And so that's all we do. We just ask them questions. That's how we get into it. Now, the questions we ask chatbots are called prompts. That's their jargon term for it. That's their specialized terminology. Just PROMPT, prompt. But that doesn't mean anything. All that means in itself, that just means it's a way of asking questions. And the only way, by the way, that you can learn is to ask the chatbot how to learn. So, for instance, you could ask any of the chatbots, what can I ask you? What kind of subjects do you cover? And they'll answer that question. And then you can carry on a conversation and say, well, can you tell me about my medications? And the answer is yes. Now, once again, we get back to the concern with accuracy. And as I mentioned, and I'll reemphasize this as we go along, that when you're dealing with the level of the ones that I've already mentioned, of Gemini and Microsoft's Copilot and ChatGPT and others, Perplexity, they're now all supply sources. And if they don't, you can say, give me the sources and the links to the sources, and they'll give you the links and the sources. And so you can verify whether or not they're correct or not. We all have to have our certain level of, as researchers, we always have a certain level of disbelief and concern. But it's no greater now with using the chatbot than it would be using a Google search or looking at Wikipedia or going to your next door neighbor for an opinion. So these are the kinds of things that we're dealing with, and we're past that. That's old news. It's now a different world. In the last, basically, it's been the last 2 years evolving, and now it's rapidly changing even this week. And so as it changes, those concerns will become even less. Now, one other thing that's important is that chatbots are not limited to English, and they're not limited to any natural language. In other words, Google, for example, is in well over 100 languages now. And so you can ask questions and get answers in all those different languages. Yes, they do handwriting recognition. Yes, they do translations from language to language. They do all of those kinds of things. So here's how you test it to kind of get some level of confidence in what they're, how they're replying to you. Is ask it something you already know. So, for instance, give me directions to Walmart, or talk about one of your ancestors. The one I use all the time is, and I'll get into that just shortly here, is my ancestor Henry Martin Tanner, who's my great-grandfather, who lived in Arizona in a little tiny town called Joseph City in northern Arizona. And there is a huge amount of information about this individual, and it's information that I've reviewed and known for years and years and years. And so when I ask a question, if it doesn't come up correctly, I know it's not correct. But in the last, period of time, the responses have become very, very accurate as it's possible to be with historical records. Now, this is one other thing that has been the biggest problem we face. One of the biggest problems we face as genealogists is handwriting. It can be old handwriting, which is one challenge, and we can have really rotten handwriting from people who just plain didn't know how to write or weren't very careful. Some of us know those people personally, by the way, and I'm probably one of them now. But it's been a major goal to have handwriting recognition for well over 75 years now. It is now to the point where the good handwriting recognition programs, as you'll find them on Family Search, for example, using handwriting recognition with their now what's called full text search that we'll get into in a minute, is up in the 98%, 99, 95, 98% accuracy. All of the chatbots have that capability to some extent. The only ones that I found recently, and this might change tomorrow, so anything that's said here about some ability of a chatbot is got to do with whatever changes. And it's, let's say, accurate enough for genealogical research purposes, not perfect, but very accurate from Gemini and also from Google's Translate program. Now, here's kind of the key thing to understand, and we'll put this part of the presentation into the context of doing research, genealogical research on the FamilySearch.org website. Now, why am I choosing Family Search? Well, they're the only ones that are doing obvious full text search that's controllable by today, that's controllable by the user. In other words, I can go in and do a full text search. I can benefit from a full text search on Ancestry and MyHeritage and others, but don't have the capability of knowing that you're doing a full text search on the other programs yet. So this is kind of in the forefront of that. And here we have a typical document. Obviously, most of these records on Family Search have been are in handwriting, or a lot of them. And the big issue with Family Search was that only about 1/3 or less of the documents were ever indexed. So we had millions and millions of documents available that we had to search either page by page or simply not search at all, which is what happened with most of the documents, because they were, in a sense, impenetrable to most of the researchers. So what is it? It was first introduced, full text search was introduced in the 1960s. So it's basically says you're doing an index, but you're doing an index of every single word in the document. Now, most of the programs that have done this, that have attempted to do this, would also have what you call a table of ignore So you would ignore the ands, the thes, the buts, and it was I mean, the words that are connecting words and all of the other, but everything else is searchable. So you can search by name, you can search by all the variations of a name, you can search by places and all the variations of the places. You can search in any way that you can imagine. And that's basically how you do a search with full text search. So it replaces the fill in the blanks kind of thing with a very simple form where you can where you just vary the search terms and that way find information. So here's been the big problem. So let's suppose your person's name was Henry Martin Tanner, and he didn't go by Henry Martin Tanner. He went by Henry Tanner or H.M. Tanner. Well, unless you searched previously on all those, and assuming you already had an index, you may or may not have found records that were somehow different than that. And so, but full text search gives you the option of searching all of those different variations and finding the information. The first time this worked very well was in Ancestry's transcription of the 1950 U.S. federal census. Previous censuses took months and months to run it, the initial index. The initial index on Ancestry for the 1950 census was a matter of hours instead of months between the 1940 census and the 50 census. And then the ultimate correction of the index, which was from the complete search and all the handwriting recognition, was accomplished by volunteers in a matter of about 6 months. So that compressed years of time down into months of having a workable product. Now, understanding that volunteer indexers have done a fabulous job of indexing the records, but because of full text search and because of the speed at which it's being done and being able to process millions of records of today, once it's set up on a computer, it can just do its job. It doesn't have to be supervised in that sense. And so Family Search Indexing Project is gone. It's been discontinued. You now have the opportunity to review and correct the indexing performed by AI. So that's the main product thing that you have. Now, some time ago, about a month or so ago, full text search was moved directly into the search tab on Family Search. So now the full text search is the second item. And this is an acknowledgement that this is the one of the core ways that we're now looking at the website and doing searches. And not only that, it's anticipating the fact that this probably will replace the obvious, the historical record searches and allow us to search the images. And it probably will not replace the catalog in the sense of being a finding aid, but it will certainly add the full text search to the items in the catalog. Here's the actual entry form. This was previously in the Family Search Labs program. It's still in labs to some extent. It's still under development. There's still changes being made to the program. But basically, you start your searches here in this very simple format right here. And as I mentioned already, the way to do that is to enter information in a variety of different orders and kind of experiment with the results that you get from putting in variations in the spelling and variations in the name. And that's going to be your job. The main big job of the user standpoint here is taking the information that they already have and using that information to do searches. So if your father's name was Bill, William, you may get Bill, you may get Billy, you may get Will, you may get lots of different things out of each variation. One way to do this is one way to know where they are in the collections, and they'll give you just kind of an idea what's going on, is to go to the Browse All Collections link down here on this page. And this is, once again, so you're not getting lost, this is on familysearch.org, the website. It's under the search tab up there on the top, on the menu bar. It's the second item there. There's no way, it's not difficult to access this. It's accessible all over the program. So this is really going to replace most of the other information. The answer of another issue is, does it read the optical character recognition, the typewritten and printed material? Yes, they're also completely searchable. Now here's not too long ago, but it's getting a little bit outdated. As you can see from this, the number of days, the number of days that are the same, the 30 September, 29, 28 September. This is an indication of the millions and millions of records that are being searched every day. So here's this particular form is where you go to browse all collections. And if you wanted to see if your area of the world, in Europe, South America, Africa, or wherever, was being processed, then you could go up there and put in your place, like Maldive Islands or India or wherever, and you'd see if any records at all had been processed so far. Just bearing in mind that this is an ongoing process and that it will very quickly start to take in an appreciable percentage of the records that are on Family Search's whole website. So here's like the United States collections. The big collections in the United States have tens of millions of records in them. They're like the land and property and probate records and others that have basically been tremendously used. Okay, so now we're going to look and see what happens when I do a name search for Henry Martin Tanner in Joseph City, Navajo County, Arizona, and he was born in, and I just put in an arbitrary range. Um, uh, the one on the right, the year range for the death, I remind people that a lot of documents occur after the death of an individual, including wills and probates and land sales and tax records and all sorts of things. So putting in the death date may limit your search to an area that you're not really particularly interested. Now, when I'm doing this kind of search, I have a form. I have fields to enter information in. But if you just take that same process and put that into a chatbot like Google Gemini or Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever, the same rules, the same understanding applies. In other words, you can do the same thing. When I think, for example, looking for Henry Martin Tanner in Joseph City, Arizona, is only part of the answer because Joseph City changed names. Original name was Allen's Camp. Second name was St. Joseph. It was in Apache County, then it was in Navajo County. So, I mean, there's things that you need to change when you are doing genealogical research of any kind, whether or not you're dealing with AI here as you are with this search fields in Family Search. There are also some additional what we call Boolean algebra types for searches. You can add quotation marks. You obviously don't want every Henry and every Jones, put it in quotation marks. When you do Henry Martin Tanner, you don't want every Henry and Martin and every Tanner, and put it in quotation marks. Plus, as I have used some of these others and more or less, sometimes they aren't as accurate or helpful as you would think they would be. Now, you might get a lot of responses. In this case, doing that Henry Martin Tanner search, I got 18,000 responses. The nice thing about it was that the responses that I got first actually were him. And so these are records that pertain to him. And if you strike out and it says, I can't find any records at all, there's another point at which you don't believe it. Just like with a Google search, you just redo the search, you just change your terms around. And one thing that, for example, with Henry Tanner was that Henry Martin Tanner almost always signed all of his legal documents as Henry M. Tanner, but on occasion it was just Henry Tanner. So we have to focus on the place as being very important and primary. It's a good idea when you do your search is to use the place in your keywords, which was at the top of the search term. First thing you get is an image attribution from it, and that gives you the place where the document came from. This has nothing to do with AI. It's just what accompanies the record once the record is found. And very important to know that you may find more documents in the place. So one good idea of doing searches with AI is to start searching with the place rather than with names and dates, and finding out what records are actually available for a certain place. When you do the search, all of the search terms you use come up highlighted in yellow on Family Search. So this is all just Family Search. So here's the record. This is a deed that came up in Navajo County Deed from 1901 to 1910. And here's all of the instances of Henry and Martin and Joseph City and all that highlighted, and the transcription on the right-hand side. So there's the original documents with the highlight. There's the transcription of the document. Now, if the language of the document, the original document was in a language, then this would also be in that language. Then there's additional documents. That's your kind of catalog of little tiny images of each of the pages. Now, if we found this document right there, we may want to search back and forth on the bottom documents to see if there are additional documents that show up with yellow. You also have some options of adding a citation and attaching the document to Family Tree directly, and adding it to and downloading the document if you wish to put a copy of the document into the memories section of memories is a separate operation, but attaching it to the individuals is actually done here. And you also are provided with the citation and a film number group and all of that information, which you may also, I strongly suggest that it be added to your source and copied into your source. And also, this is what I think you should use, is that citation. Okay, so once we're here, this is the process we go through and this may change because the program itself is in flux, so there may be detailed changes on this. So you can click down at the bottom of the page to go to the next one. So you fill in that information. And then to attach that person to the family tree, you will need the person's ID at this point in time. It is probably going to change because I would suggest that they would ask you for the ID number initially when you do a search if you know the person's in the family tree. But it's helpful to have more than one window open. If you have two monitors, it's even better that you can put in the information from the ID numbers that you're going to need to attach it to various people. Now, the full text search, family to search, full text search will give you the name of the person you looked for and any pertinent names if that is available on the family search family tree. And then you can just go down there and click the little boxes and add this record to any of the people that are there, which is appropriate. And of course, the document's been transcribed, so the chances are it'll be very much easier to find the names of the people who are mentioned. And then basically it asks you on the last step, if to put in a reason for your attachment, just as we've been encouraging people to do for a long time. So we're back to the deed. And the important thing, you really kind of have to have this realization as you begin to do this, is that when this document was filed and recorded, it is entirely possible that it has not ever been looked at by any outside person. Obviously, it was available in the Navajo County's recorder's office in Navajo County, Arizona. But who was going to go to the county and look for this document? And even if it was on Family Search, which it is obviously, then you'd have to guess that there was a document that you wanted to look for. And if you were an extremely experienced and knew how to do genealogy, you might have gone through page by page and looked. But in most instances, the number of documents is prohibited, and people have not looked at this information. So here's the basic document place. Now, once again, going back to variations, here's an Henry M. And when you do these different variations, you would be well advised to do it in separate tabs on your computer presently, because once you do a new search, then you'll be replacing the old search. So it's a good idea to kind of get the information you need after each search and not just keep making searches unless you're not finding anything that you want. And keywords are tremendously powerful. There's lots of examples. You could put in cemeteries, you could put in. I prefer to start there with a search on the place to see what kinds of records are actually available from Family Search. So that's the important thing. Now, when we focused here on this particular way of using artificial intelligence, this is not the beginning, and it's nearly the beginning, but it's not the end of it. All of those other programs, to some extent, can do this kind of thing, given access to any kind of a database. So one of the things you could do with a deed, for example, with any of the other chatbots, not with Family Search, but with any of the other chatbots, is put that same deed transcription or the original deed into Google Gemini, for example, and ask it for an explanation of all the people, identify all the individuals in the document, tell how those individuals were related, tell what interests they had, and describe the nature of the operation. Do all that in one prompt, and it will do all that. It's fairly remarkable to watch in real life, in person. Now, when you start looking for any record or let's say you're looking for a probate record, you may be surprised to find a death certificate, because probate death certificates go along with the probate. This happens to be a probate record of my grandmother, who died well before I was born, when my father was only 8 years old. This was not by the way, this was not a record that I was not aware of or didn't have. I already had a copy of the death certificate. What was surprising here was that the full text search when I was searching in my mind for probate records or whatever, came up with the death record. Now, another way to do this is to try more general searches. For instance, look for a surname in a town. Now, you may think that 2,722 records is excessive, but that would give you the kind of a measure of how many people from that particular family lived in that particular area, and that may be something that's very helpful for you when you're doing research in a particularly in one area. In this case, I did a search for my grandfather, who was Leroy Parkinson Tanner, and he was in the border war between Mexico and the United States back, and also in World War I. But I spent years of research looking for his military records, and I found a lot of them subsequently, but these document came up, and this would have been the key document for me if I'd gotten it back in that time period when I was doing the research over a long period of time. And so you can see how much information is there, and it's transcribing both the printed text and any handwritten text. So it's a good idea to do kind of a reasonable search through all the responses. If you do this, you could do this by either putting this document or the transcription into a program like Gemini. Now, if I mention Gemini a lot, it's because Google has now moved into one of the top tiers of the most used and most recognized programs. So it's free. So it's very much used and going to be used program. One thing that's important is you need to look at all the responses that come, because I wouldn't even know this document was in existence. It happens to be nothing to do directly with Henry Tanner, other than the fact that he was one of the people who formed the St. Joseph Irrigation Company. This was back in 1893. And the discoveries go on and on. There's just more and more documents and more information out of this. Now, what if you don't get the information? Well, I remind you that they're in the process of processing this documents, and so the documents you need right now maybe not have been processed, but the goal is to process all the documents, and so that you may want to go back and look every week to see what's been done. And as the number of records processed grows, the ones we've been finding are spectacular. Every day I go to the library and talk to the people who are now starting to use at the BYU Library Family History Center on the Brigham Young University campus. My wife and I train the missionaries, and as we go to listen to them and talk to them and try to help them to understand more about their job, their research, we're finding tremendously interesting responses and breakthroughs with using this. Now, this is only an example, as used as an example of one aspect of AI when it's used in this context by Family Search. The general use of AI has the same kind of remarkable response. Here's, and when I say use your imagination, here's an older document back in the 1700s. Perfectly readable from my standpoint, but maybe a little challenging to some. And it's with my direct line ancestor, William Tanner, going back into the 1700s. And these are documents that I, after spending years looking at microfilm, did not find and did not know about and had never seen. It managed to identify 3 of the identified Tanner children and the sons of William Tanner, plus his wife, the wife of Benjamin Tanner. So this was quite a big breakthrough. From my perspective, handwriting recognition and full text search will just make a flood of undiscovered documents, things that we never knew were there and didn't have any idea and didn't look for some small kind of obscure collection of records that we just hadn't ever even thought about looking at. And the big search term to repeat, the big challenge here are discovering what are the valid search terms that we need to have. And remember to think of all the names, places, and dates that could be associated with your ancestors. Anything else also, occupations can go in the keyword, anything, cemeteries, probate, wills, all of that can go in the keyword and filter down and limit the total number of responses so that they can become manageable. And bottom line on this is to identify your own or develop your own methodology. You're going to have to be the one that decides how you talk to these things and what is successful for you. As you go along, there's dozens and dozens of videos on YouTube. At the BYU Library Family History Center will be regularly posting additional videos about AI as the programs all change. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Any questions out there, Laurie?
Let's see here.
Okay, I don't see any questions on Facebook. We do have someone from Ontario, another person from Connecticut, another person from Missouri with
Oh,
us
good.
today.
Cool.
Okay.
I don't see
Any
anything.
idea of the number? We just sometimes have to report numbers, so.
Yeah.
If you check back in a couple of weeks, I will be able to give you a good
Oh, okay.
number.
Well, then I was not going to put any numbers in, but if there was anyone, that'd be fine.
Oh,
Okay.
well, I just saw the just us 3, I guess, um on Zoom. I don't know how many people are. Is anybody watching Facebook? The numbers?
I have the 3 participants that I saw. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's cool. They're
Okay.
coming from all over. You'll see how many hundreds of people actually do listen to these recordings, but just at their own time, I guess. So
Okay.
yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was I appreciate. Thank you very much for giving us this presentation. It's interesting to see how things are going along. I've read a lot of articles on this over the course of time, and it sounds like it's just becoming. I have found a bunch of stuff using the full text search uh, on the family search stuff, which interesting. I found a whole new place that one of my, what is he, third great grandfather owned property that nobody else in
Yeah.
the family knows about. So
Yeah,
Well,
we
I
had
think the one thing I think that's important to understand is that um, when you're looking at a video on YouTube or when you're looking at articles that come out or what are explanations, you have to understand that if it's older than about a month, it's probably not the same. I mean, really, the changes are so rapid and so many changes coming out weekly, daily, that sometimes if you say something about a program and then 2 weeks later, it's not even the
not there
same
anymore.
program.
Wait, do you have any particular blogs that you read on this stuff? I kind of keep up with Lifehacker and a couple of other
They're
ones.
they're just all over the whole spectrum. I have aggregators, news aggregators
Uh-huh.
like from Google and whatever that give me long lists of stuff that comes through, and so I just sort of scan through it every day and spot all of the changes.
We
Right.
have someone that asked if they could watch the recording again. I assured them they could. Um, Someone says they had a question that you haven't mentioned assigning a role and task.
Um, okay, so there's kind of a secondary kind of, what do you want to call it? Um, Industry, the secondary group of people who are taking advantage of the AI chatbots and coming up with suggested prompts. And so everybody has their kind of little, this is what you have to put in the prompt each time. This is something that you need to recall and you'll get more accuracy and all this kind of stuff. Like I say, it's up to you and your own methodology and what you're comfortable with. Sometimes it's interesting to see what other people have used to get results and the results they've gotten. The rule here on any of it is less is more. I should have, well, whatever. But that's kind of the major issue here because you start getting to long, complex prompts, you'll get long, complex responses, but it's just too many factors to try to do. And what we're doing in genealogy is we're not trying to create images. We're not trying to write videos. We're not doing all of that kind of things. We're not doing programming. We're out of the realm. We're not managing a business. We're not trying to play the stock market. We're not doing any kinds of things like that. What we're doing is focusing on the records and what I found doing literally thousands of searches is the most direct way. It's easiest. And if I start putting in lots of qualifications, what I usually do is eliminate the documents I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Because it's very, very difficult to guess what's going to come up. And so, how do I know what to ask until I've seen the documents? And then the other part of that is to use the documents themselves to build on the terms you use to do. So, if you don't know anything about probate, when you start getting probate documents, begin to use the probate terms. If you don't know anything about land and property, you start using land terms with your records. So, those are kind of the ways to do it. But yeah, everybody comes up with their own skill, their own schemes and thinks that works. Well, it works for them.
Right. What works for one place may not be
Yeah,
effective for another or
their searches, they're searching for the same things I am. So how do I know whether their stuff is going to work? You know? Okay. Anyway,
the thing those oh golly, I have two or three questions going around in my head. um when those things you wrote an article a few weeks back that was about um things on in the family search full text search that were where you had to keep starting over
hmm
at the search.
I had a meeting this last week on Tuesday with the engineers. I gave them we discussed all of those and they are aware of them and they're going to change all that. It's like I said, anything you write is going to be old in a week. So
Yay. I appreciate you pointing those things out to them because I had myself thought, oh, am I doing something wrong that I have to keep going back to the start
yeah.
and starting over with the search? I shouldn't I be able to just change a word? One thing I've noticed, and this is all the way along as I've helped people do family history or done my own, and that is when you have a search box or search window, a lot of people tend to put into the search box everything they know. And what I continually point out to them is that this record, if you're putting in a death date here, or you're putting in so what you're doing is you're telling the computer that if it doesn't have this, I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
So not, you know, putting in too much like you were talking about, or not adding. I said, this is what I was talking to you about understanding the records a little bit better, because sometimes we're putting in, we want to find a certain record, but we're putting in a piece of information that really won't be on that record. So we're probably, eliminating all those
Eliminating.
documents.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
just
that's the problem. And so less is always better. Less is more.
what I tell people is, sometimes they want to type in all this stuff, and I say, fine, but if you don't get much, or you're not getting anything, keep taking out pieces of information, and that the way the search was working on family search, the full text search, that wasn't possible to do in an easy and orderly manner. So, that's what
Yeah.
I'm
Well, when
hoping
you write
for.
it in, so for example, if I put in Henry Martin Tanner, then I would take out Henry the Martin, the middle
Uh-huh.
name. So how many times would he have used that? Uh, if I if I start thinking about, and as a matter of fact, if you want all the variations of a name, just ask Gemini, Google Gemini, say, give me all the name variations for Charles, or give me all of it. And they'll give you them in every language and every place that play might appear.
Wow. So
So
that's
there
a
you
good
have a
idea.
long list of search terms. Okay. Anyway, thank you. Did you have more? You're locked up, Laurie.
Pardon?
You were locked on. I mean, you're you had been locked up. I didn't hear if you said anything.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Jerry, did you have any questions?
No, not really. I have, just people are are expressing their thanks for sharing your experience, James. Um, they also mentioned that at this point in time, their attempts with AI and family search have just given them information they already knew. But I think it's like anything, you have to just keep going back every now and again and trying something new and try see if there's more to find. But
What I know,
Well,
what I
I
noticed,
mean, I have dealt, okay, I've dealt just a lot of times with people who say they already knew. I would ask that question, how many of the articles have you read in the last week? And what do you know about what's going on? And the answer sometimes is yes. I mean, there are people out there that are spending, you know, making sure they understand what's being changed and what's going on. But if you did this, I have so many people I talk to about like full text search, and they say, "Oh yeah, well you talked about that last year, and I tried it, and that's the last time I've worked on it." So whatever opinion they had back there is not anything not consistent with current reality. So that's kind of the issue.
well, the thing too is sometimes the way we'll do a prompt or something, we'll just sort of totally weed out the new stuff. Because like I was saying, I found this ancestor of mine owned property in a state and a county that I had no idea about previously. And so if I just kept saying, only show me this stuff from, you know, California or whatever, then I wouldn't have seen the stuff from Nevada. And
Hmm.
it just,
Yeah,
you
and
have to
and
be
it
really super open-minded, I guess is the thing I'm saying.
Well, all of those are basic genealogical search things that we've
Well,
had to
sure,
deal with for years and years. But
exactly.
why would we use the chatbots any differently than the way we've already know how to do the work?
Well, maybe the point is that there were always people who weren't opening their search wide enough, and
Yeah,
so
that's true
you
too.
can't expect this AI business to do magic for you if you're still using some kind of really locked down approach to searching. So,
Yeah, well, so instance, what I do now is I start my searches always with the largest area I can think of. So if the person came from England or from Germany or wherever, then Bavaria or some one of the million of little, I mean, lots of little countries, then I will do the search there just to see what comes up on that country, and then I'll add in a name or the surnames or things like that. In other words, I'm doing the largest, biggest search I can. I'm going to keep narrowing it one item at a time. And as I watch in full text search, you'll see that it'll start bringing up a whole different set of documents every time you do it. So it's just, it's a continual process. And you have the same thing when you're working with the chatbots. If you ask them for people who were born on December 1st, 1905, they're going to get only people who were born on December 1st, 1905.
so you better
And,
be right.
and you better be right in your date. And you got to realize that that's not going to happen. So, that's
Right.
the kind of thing.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
Really appreciate. Uh,
Okay. Well, we'll see you. Probably see you soon.
yep.
Bye.
I'll do. Thank you very much, James.